Now, Britain's centre-left Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson has conceded defeat and announced that she's stepping down following Sunday's general election. Andersson's Social Democratic Party and their left-wing coalition are lost by a thin margin to the Conservative bloc, which includes the far-right Sweden Democrats, a party that has its roots in a neo-Nazi movement in the 1980s and 90s.
A turning point in Swedish politics. Magdalena Andersson concedes defeat in the country's parliamentary election.
It looks like the four right-wing parties have received just 50% of the votes in the election and in parliament. They have a 1 or 2 seat advantage. It's a thin majority, but it's a majority.
It's a major hit to the Prime Minister's Social Democrats. They have governed Sweden since 2014 and dominated the country's political landscape since the 1930s. Now this man, Ulf Kristersson, is expected to form a government. His bloc includes the Sweden Democrats, a far-right party that has vowed to make Sweden safe again by bringing in longer prison sentences and restricting immigration. People in the capital reacted to the news of the bloc's narrow win.
It's a sad sign of the times that we're living in, that they can profile themselves on scaring the people with that it's unsafe to live in Sweden with all the criminals and all the activities and so forth. That only affects about 1 or 2% of the people of Sweden. Most people, they live a very, very, very secure life. So how they can win an election on that? It's ridiculous.
There are a lot of big questions in our society today that in some ways hasn't been addressed correctly. And I think a lot of people have been longing for a change, even though that change sometimes means shifting the polarity to the right in this case.
Sunday's vote was one of the closest elections ever in Sweden. Thousands of overseas and postal votes were needed to get a clearer picture of who the winner was. However, it could take weeks to form a government.
Let's take a look at what this is likely to mean with Marcus Karlsson, who's a presenter and reporter for TV4 in Stockholm. Welcome to DW. Does a right-leaning government that includes a far-right party mean that Sweden will necessarily lurch to the right?
I mean, it's clear that the Sweden Democrats will have more influence than they ever had before, with more than 20% of the vote. Exactly what their influence will be, well, the jury's still out on that, because now these parties of the right that have won the election, they have to strike a coalition agreement, just like in Germany and many other countries. How long that will take is unclear at the moment, and how difficult and arduous that process is also unclear at the moment. What is clear, or what appears fairly clear, is that the Sweden Democrats actually won't be part of the government. Why is that? Well, because the Liberal Party, also part of this winning coalition, has said that it won't accept the Sweden Democrats within an actual government. So what appears likely is some sort of supply and confidence agreement between the Sweden Democrats and the other parties of the right-wing coalition. But as I say, it's difficult to say exactly what kind of influence and what kind of relationship these parties will have going forward.
OK, so no Sweden Democrats in government, but the Prime Minister of the third largest party in Parliament is going to have to rely on votes from the Sweden Democrats in order to push his agenda through. So how does he do that? How does he convince a larger party to go his way?
Well, there are certain points over which these parties agree. That includes energy. These parties all want to build more nuclear power, for instance. It includes defense issues. It includes certain migration issues. So there are some common points here that these parties can take forward. There are also some issues that where these parties disagree. I'm thinking, for example of asylum issues. I'm thinking about foreign aid. The Sweden Democrats, they want to cut down on foreign aid. Traditionally, that has been a red line for the Christian Democrats and the Liberal Party. They don't want to cut down on foreign aid. So once again, these are issues that will have to be hashed out in the days and weeks to come. And it's difficult to see exactly where this will come down.
And just taking a step back from the deal-making in government to look at the result itself, we have the far-right winning voters by focusing on rising crime rates in a small number of immigrant neighbourhoods across the country. So why was this such an important issue for Swedes?
Well, there have been hundreds of shootings so far this year, and also more than 40 people killed in these shootings. In a country such as Sweden, with just about 10 million inhabitants, of course, that is a fairly big number. And I think what's been worrying people in the past few months or so is that this violence, these shootings, haven't just occurred in the suburbs of Stockholm, for instance, or in other suburbs in Malmö and Gothenburg. They have actually happened also in smaller cities and smaller towns in Sweden. That has been something that's been brought up in the campaign once or quite a lot of times, that the shootings are spreading, they're going up in number, but they're also spreading geographically to smaller towns and cities.
Good talking to you, that was very clear. Marcus Carlson from Sweden's TV4, thank you.
Thank you.